We all love hearing about the world's success stories. The geniuses, the billionaires, the people who never gave up. But let's be real. Most of us don't exactly wake up feeling like Steve Jobs. Half the time, we're just trying to remember where we left our damn keys. So, what about the other guys? The drunk screw-ups? The people who wasted decades? The ones you'd never put on a motivational poster unless the poster said, "Don't end up like this." That's where Charles Bukowski stumbles in. On paper, he was a complete disaster. An alcoholic, gambler, womanizer, broke postal worker. Basically the human version of spilled beer. Pretty much the last person you'd expect to give life advice. And yet, buried under all that chaos, this guy left behind some of the rawest, most uncomfortable, and somehow funniest lessons you'll ever hear about how to actually live. Bukowski wanted to be a writer. That was the dream. But reality slapped him with a fat stack of rejection letters. Magazine after magazine told him his work was disgusting, crude, worthless. Basically, he was Yelp reviewed as a one-star human. So what do you do when the world tells you you suck? In Bukowski's case, drink like it's an Olympic sport. He worked a dead-end job at the post office, filing letters he couldn't care less about, earning just enough to blow it all on booze and racetrack bets. The rest went to prostitutes and bad decisions, and when the money ran out, he sat alone in his crappy apartment, hammering half-drunk poems into a typewriter that deserved hazard pay. This wasn't a few bad years. This was 30 years. 3 whole decades of watching his life blur into hangovers and meaningless routines. To anyone else, that would look like failure on repeat. To Bukowski, it was just Tuesday. Then, out of nowhere, something actually went right. At 50 years old, an age when most people are buying lawnmowers and complaining about their back, Bukowski finally got a shot. A small independent publisher looked at his drunken ramblings and thought, yeah, this disaster might sell. Bukowski, being Bukowski, didn't sugarcoat his choice. He told the editor, I have 2 options, stay at the post office and go insane, or quit and starve while pretending to be a writer. I've decided to starve. Inspirational, right? Basically, chase your dreams, but also prepare to eat dirt. And with that, he sat down and blasted out his first novel in just 3 weeks. The title? Post Office. The dedication? Dedicated to nobody. Classic Bukowski move, 0 sentiment, maximum middle finger. It was the unlikeliest comeback. Decades of failure, oceans of booze, and suddenly this guy was a published novelist. Not because he believed in himself, not because he followed some morning routine, but because he was brutally honest about being a loser and wrote it down anyway. Now, most people would turn this into a redemption story, like, he made it, he turned his life around, he became a better man. Nope. Bukowski got famous and stayed the same chaotic mess he'd always been. The man didn't suddenly discover green smoothies and yoga. He showed up to poetry readings hammered, insulted the audience to their faces, and sometimes tried to fight them, while still holding a beer. Fame didn't soften him. It just gave him a bigger stage to be unhinged. He got arrested for flashing people in public. He tried to sleep with basically every woman he met. He was still drunk, still reckless, still a walking HR violation. Success didn't turn Bukowski into a saint. If anything, it just made him a louder sinner with a microphone. And that's the twisted beauty of it. Success isn't proof that you've fixed yourself. Bukowski wasn't great because he overcame his flaws. He was great because he leaned straight into them, wrote about them with 0 shame, and let the world judge. On his tombstone, it doesn't say best-selling author or legendary poet. It says 2 words, don't try, which, honestly, feels less like wisdom and more like the world's worst Nike slogan. But that was the core of his philosophy. Life wasn't some shiny, self-help seminar where happiness and success hold hands and skip through a meadow. To him, life was ugly, messy, unfair, and pretending otherwise was just lying to yourself. You don't get love without heartbreak, you don't get greatness without pain, and you don't get meaning without sacrifice. While everyone else was chasing peace, joy, and positive vibes, Bukowski was basically screaming, "Stop trying to be happy, you idiots, life hurts, deal with it." And weirdly enough, that honesty is what makes him relatable. Because deep down, we all know the good stuff never comes without some kind of blood, sweat, or bad hangover. Bukowski's real superpower wasn't talent, or discipline, or some magical writing process. It was his shameless honesty. He wrote about his failures, his self-loathing, his addictions, his regrets, all the stuff most people bury 6 feet under, and he didn't dress it up with fancy words either. He just threw his mess onto the page, raw and bleeding, and let people deal with it. Most writers try to impress you. Bukowski didn't care if you were impressed. He cared if you felt the punch in the gut he was feeling. He'd talk about shame and pride in the same sentence, without flinching, without apologizing, without even pretending to be better now. That's why people connected with him. He didn't write the life people wanted. He wrote the life people were terrified to admit they actually had. In a way, his honesty was like watching a car crash, horrifying, but you can't look away. And that's the strange brilliance of it. The uglier it got, the more real it felt. For Bukowski, purpose wasn't some vision board or a 5-step plan from a life coach. He believed the most important choices in life don't even feel like choices. They feel like something picked you. Writing was his inevitability. No matter how much he drank, gambled, or self-destructed, he kept crawling back to the typewriter like it was some toxic ex he couldn't quit. He once said, "Find what you love and let it kill you." Not exactly motivational poster material unless you want your poster to cause an HR meeting. But the point was simple. Your purpose is whatever you can't escape, even when it ruins you. It's the thing you'll keep doing even when it makes no logical sense, even when it hurts, even when it costs you everything else. Bukowski didn't write because it made him happy. He wrote because not writing would have driven him insane. It wasn't about success or fame, it was survival. That's what made his words feel alive. And maybe that's why Bukowski still resonates, because deep down, we're all a little messy. We all screw things up, waste time, chase the wrong people, pick the wrong battles. Most of us just hide it behind filters and fake smiles. Bukowski didn't bother. He threw his chaos on the table and said, "Here it is. Take it or leave it." And people took it, millions of them. Not because he gave them hope, but because he gave them honesty. And sometimes that's way more useful than hope. Bukowski's life wasn't some inspirational rise and grind fairy tale. He didn't wake up at 5 a.m., meditate, and drink kale smoothies. He woke up hungover, stumbled to the typewriter, and somehow turned decades of screw-ups into art. That's exactly why his lessons hit harder than the polished success stories. They're messy, ugly, and real. He showed us that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the raw material. That trying can be the biggest excuse we hide behind. That meaning comes with pain, and that honesty, the kind that makes you squirm, is what actually connects us. So maybe the losers have more to teach us than the winners. Maybe the wrecks, the rejects, the so-called failures are the ones holding the truth. Okay, enough about Bukowski. Your turn. What did you learn from Bukowski? Did you really try, or did you just embellish with sweet words? Drop it in the comments. And while you're here, hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching, seriously.